the water's fine, homie, jump into the deep end. Sow it, you will reap it. We talking how to start it, how to grow it, how to keep it. Take a deep breath. You are now rocking with Founder Secrets.
Molly with Heartcast Media. Welcome to Founder Secrets.
Thank you for having me.
I will say, yeah, it's rare that we have started a pod with beautiful, animals in the background, which I guess, you're doing this from Costa Rica. You started a podcast business, ran a podcast business for many years, Washington, D.C., and then during COVID decided to move to Costa Rica. Love to, what pitch kind of convinced you to upend your whole life and move?
Well, it was always like a 10-year retirement plan kind of a deal. But then the pandemic happened and my very brick-and-mortar business shifted and we pivoted to being completely virtual. And our client base is, all over the world now. And so I was working remotely, spending a lot of money to live in DC, not enjoying any of that. And just thought to myself, well, if I'm going to work remotely, and the business grew 200% because, we do podcasting as business development, and that continued to need to happen during the pandemic even more so. So the business grew considerably. And I just thought, why wait until I retire? Why not go now? Get my clients used to the fact that I might not be down the street and see if we can ride this wave. And so I guess I pitched myself, really.
Did you go down first? Did you test things out, or you just went all in?
Well, I had been there in 2018, and I enjoyed it there. I've had a bunch of spinal surgery, so I spent a lot of time in pain, especially in the winters. And I went down in March of 2018, and I had no pain. I went from being in a lot of pain to no pain as soon as I landed. And so that was really, I thought, I don't want to be in the cold, old rickety bones, hobbling around if I can be in Costa Rica and not be any of this. And it was wild how the day before I'm moving around like an 80-year-old person, and then I'm in Costa Rica running down the beach, So I said, there's something to this. And so that was really the big thing, but I hadn't spent a lot of time. I just, it's interesting that the whole city shut down and I got an Airbnb in North Carolina. I was in DC, but I went to North Carolina. I got this lady to illegally rent me her Airbnb because I had been a host for a lot of years. And she was like, don't tell anybody. I'm like, your secret's safe. And so I was out on the beach with my dog, walking the beach and talking to my dog like normal people do. And I said, isn't this great, Lily? What if we lived here? And I just stopped and thought, well, wait, what if I did live here, right? This is a pretty low bar. It's North Carolina. You know what I mean? If I can't pull that off, I don't know what I'm doing in life. But it just kind of reminded me that, I like being barefoot. I like being in nature. I like feeling more connected, and it's totally possible. And so that's really kind of was that moment of well, wait a minute. Why can't I live exactly where I want to live? So there
wow.
it is.
It's, how did you build a social connection though, right? You to go to a whole nother country, right? How'd you build a community there in Costa Rica?
Well, honestly, when there's a lot of different types of people here. Shockingly, there's a lot of anti-socialist people here, even though it's a socialist country, but whatever, that's a whole other podcast. But it takes a lot of different people to come here, but there's a common ground in all of you who are willing to leave everything that you know behind. And I feel like community is so much more important. So I actually have better adult friendships now in Costa Rica than I've probably had just because of accessibility and opportunity. My friends will say, hey, I'm coming into town, from the beach, let's go hiking and let's go do this, or let's go out on the boat, where it's in DC, there was really not a lot of time to build those relationships with people. And you're in bars or at happy hours. Here, it's hey, let's walk the beach at 7 a.m. and check in with each other's mental health. Those are the kind of friends that I have here. So community is super, super important for sure. For sure.
Before we go much further, I jumped too far ahead with Costa Rica. I got too excited. We do have an icebreaker. So looking back, what is one trend or opportunity you wish you had capitalized on earlier in your entrepreneurial journey? I'll start, then Flavio, and then Molly, and then we'll continue with the questions. So I owned a marketing agency for 12 years, and we were early on in this trend of called discoveries. And it was basically when somebody came to us and says, "Hey, I want to build a website," instead of giving them a price, we would say, "Okay, our websites are 50 to 100 grand, 150 grand. If that sounds interesting, let's do a discovery first. So let's, pay us $5,000 and we'll go interview your customers. We'll create a spec. We'll do all of this." We were early on that, and that really catapulted the business. But, it gained Toyota as a client, and it really made a big difference in the business. The one trend or opportunity that I wish I had grasped more onto was, we just let it, like, that was in 2013, and the business grew 2013, 14, 15. But I wish that I just kept going on that. I wish that I just kept going, because we could have, we can't just be stagnant. I can't just come up with the idea or hear about the idea, do it, and then just sit on it for the next 5 years. Like, we had to catch the next wave, which would have been, probably mobile, or learning more about how do you do discoveries on mobile? How do you push more of that? And it's not a big regret or anything, but if I wanted to stay in that business, I would have either done that or productized services, instead of doing something custom for every single person. Building more of a kind of product as a service, right, and selling it as a consistent price, which I now do, but it's actually a product. Flavio, what about you?
So early on in my previous business, iMedicare, and we just had like an iPad app that didn't even work that much unless I restarted the servers every morning. In any event, it was very early on, and but somehow these guys that were the founders of GoodRx, which you guys may know is like a prescription card that people in the US use to get cheaper medications. They came and were like, "Hey, we really want this thing you guys have on the iPad." And I'm like, well, and they're like, "Well, it's $1,000 a year." And they're like, "Well, no, we want to buy it, like the whole company." And I'm like, well, we just started, and we're like, "We want $1 million." Like, it's like Dr. Evil's like, $1 million. And they're like, "Yeah, we don't have any cash, but we could give you GoodRx stock." And I'm like, "I don't what? Like, I already have stock that isn't worth anything. I don't want another stock that isn't worth anything." So, and they're like, "No, but we could be generous." And dude, come on, and so so it didn't happen, and we parted ways. And GoodRx now is a market cap of $20 billion. No, maybe not 20. Definitely several $1 billion.
Now they're $1 million.
Yeah,
exactly. So kind of maybe it would have been better to, I would have missed out maybe on the journey, but definitely would have had a much more successful end to the journey, but doing a lot less if I just said yes to that one thing.
I've never heard that story. That's a good one.
That's amazing. I did a podcast with a guy, Spencer Haywood. He's a former NBA player, and he got the original first Nike shoe deal, and they offered him stock, and he had this Bogart manager who sold it for $1,000 or something, and it would be worth $57 billion or something now. It's the original Nike shoe deal was Spencer Haywood. So you've got something in common with a legendary NBA player. So,
right, great.
Yeah.
There you go.
How about you, Molly?
Yeah. I don't have any regrets as the kids say. But I would, and not to be cheesy because we're about to talk about this, but implementing podcasting, branded podcasting as a business development tool. If I wish I had done that more intentionally early on, I think that we would have would have more impact.
So expand on that, because that's something that we're interested in talking about. So Flavia and I don't use this for business development; we just do this for fun. But I know that people do use podcasting. Business people use it, or salespeople use it. How what's a misnomer, a misconception about podcasting as kind of business development then, or growing pipeline?
Well, for me, it's super clear. People talk a lot about using a podcast for visibility. Like, people are going to hear your angelic voice and then just spend all their money with you. And that's just not how it works. It's like you don't close deals on social media. You just nurture the people who have already brought into your fold, right? To make sure that they know you're still a real person. So a podcast, by nature, no one's going to hire you simply because they heard you on a podcast. Maybe every once in a while, but the input versus output on that is a really low number, right? However, if you interview the people that you want to do business with, or people that are aggregators who do business with lots of the people that you want to do business with, and you're very strategic and targeted about it, it's an excellent way to fill your pipeline and to develop strategic relationships with people that can drive revenue. And it's not about downloads. So downloads don't close deals, relationships do, period. So, you getting that $10 million contract or $100 million contract with a company is not going to be because you got 1 million downloads on your podcast. It's because you have a relationship with them. So it's a totally different method of forget downloads, forget those metrics, forget any of that. Don't start ugly, don't just record from your phone and don't not edit it and don't do all those things because you just want to see if it works or not. Are you going to buy the crappiest steak at the market and see if it tastes like a filet? Plot twist, it's not going to work, right? So it's a very strategic move, but it has to be in line with the rest of your organization. So if you're a $100 million contract kind of a shop, then you should have $100 million looking graphics and not hire somebody on Fiverr, right? So it's a delicate balance, but it's an excellent tool for building those relationships.
That $100 million graphic. It's like,
I know. I want to see that
Leonardo da Vinci graphic,
gold plated.
So, Molly, I think you had some ups and downs in your career. I wonder if you're willing to kind of share. You mentioned you had a brick and mortar business, so maybe take us a little bit back on kind of the learnings you've had along the way.
For sure. So I've owned a multimedia company for the last 24 years, started in 2002. So I'm an old head, an old veteran in the space, primarily music business. I managed 160 different artists and groups. I had built multiple studios all over DC. I had a 3-story building across from the legendary Howard Theater. Was working with the city, in different ways, doing underground things and above ground things. And we were wildly known, but we were not wildly successful. And I learned a lot about how to not run a business and how to be a not great leader. And I did a lot of things because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I closed that business and became a student of business and decided that I was going to learn everything that I didn't know. I read every leadership book, every business development, 150 books. And 4 years later, I got an MBA in how to do things the right way. And so I built Heartcast Media with this new method of just taking advice from people who are successful, like taking the straightest path to the money, building services that there's a demand for. I mean, really basic business principles, but if you don't know, you don't know. And especially as a woman in business, a lot of the resources are more around mental health than they are around business development. You are enough. You got this, girl. Cool. Tell me how to make money. You know what I mean? You know what'll make me feel enough? Payment notifications. You know what I mean? I don't need you to tell me I'm enough. I'm amazing. Let my therapist do the heavy lifting. Let's make some money. I was just at a trade convention in DC last week, the International Teleconference, conference. It was mind blowing. I've never seen so much navy blue in my life. Very small booths that had offices. Nobody was standing around handing out keychains. It was on a visual scale. The showroom floor looked mostly empty because everybody was in those rooms closing deals and inking deals and putting pen to paper and making money. Wildly different than other conventions I've gone to, especially when they're aimed at women, right? There's a huge lack of resources. So I just decided I was going to educate myself and create a business that would run differently, a business I could run for 6 months without me being around and still make money because I built systems that are bulletproof, right? So I took every mistake I made, every leadership book. There was times I'd have to pause the audiobook and call people and be like, man, I'm so sorry. I couldn't have gotten that any more wrong. I am so sorry. But, I'm a better leader now, knock on wood, right? So, I think the only way to be a good entrepreneur is to get a bunch of stuff wrong, because the only way you can be good at anything is by having experience, and the only
What
way
was
you
the
get
moment?
experience.
Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they go through what you're talking about. They go through, I certainly did have. They go through, but a lot of entrepreneurs don't come out the other side. They don't learn. They don't grow. They don't read the 150 books. They don't go to the conferences. They don't ask for help. And I'm curious, what made you do that? What made you? Because you were well known. It's probably easy for the ego to say, "I'm doing great. Sure, I'm not getting paid enough, but we're doing great. Look at all this media and success, and the mayor wants to talk to me." So what was there a moment that made you say, screw this, I need a better path, or what caused the change?
I mean, it's a pretty deep one, but I had a miscarriage in 2016 and had medical complications for it for 10 months. And so every single day I was reminded of that. And I was taking care of everyone around me, 160 artists, all these places, all these things. I was pouring from an empty cup. I was deteriorating in front of everyone's eyes, and no one noticed. And the doctor said, "Well, we think you have cancer." And I thought, well, that tracks, because 10 years or 15 years earlier, I had a bunch of spinal surgeries, and it was just a bunch of problems. And I prayed every day to get cancer. I thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't get rid of myself. I will devastate too many people. Just please give me cancer. Please give me cancer. Well, I got through that period 15 years later, right? I'm going through this. I'm more stressed out than I've ever been in my life. And they say, "We think you have cancer." And I said, well, that tracks. I definitely prayed hard enough for it about 15 years ago. Here we are. And I was relieved. And I did this whole biopsy thing, and they said, "Great news, you don't have cancer." And I thought, well, shoot, all right. And so I just, Marie Kondo'd and reverse Oprah'd my life. I said, all the things that I'm doing, what brings me joy? I love production. I love strategy. I love business development. And I love being on the other side of the camera and creating things, right? So I dialed in on that, and I got rid of everything that I didn't want to do. And I reverse Oprah'd my life, and I said, I'm not responsible for you or anybody, and I focused on myself, and that's when I invested. So it wasn't this then I was recognized by this person. No, it was hard, man. It was hard. And it was well, you're either going to live this life the way it is or you're not. Right. And so I decided I wanted a life that I wouldn't be relieved, to leave. That's not it. And if you ask anybody in DC, they say, "Oh, Molly's the mayor of DC. Oh, Molly changed my life. Molly was instrumental in my career." You would think I would have ran into burning buildings and saved children, but I didn't. But on the inside, there was nothing left. There was nothing left. But I knew I still had so much more in me. I just didn't have it there. And it was actually a Tom Bilyeu episode of Impact Theory. When it was a few of them, but he would say things like, your greatest success comes after your greatest failure. And the greatest realization that you can have is that you don't have to do this anymore. And I remember just being like, I don't have to do this anymore. And pivoted. And now I'm potentially negotiating $100 million deal for my business, So,
Boom.
Anything is possible. Everything is possible, right? But you have to make the decision to stop doing the stuff that's not working. And mine was super dramatic with the miscarriage, but everybody's got something, right? We're all adults. You don't have to play the clarinet anymore. If you hate the clarinet, mom's not around. You can stop playing the clarinet. And that means if you hate your job, if you hate your boss, if you're morally at ends with what you do every day, you don't have to do it anymore, And maybe you got to stop doing that to get what's next. So,
yeah, it's a little scary to take a leap of faith. It sounds like you had a trust in yourself that you were going to be okay, right? What's that backup? I remember when I was taking a leap of faith, entrepreneurship, I was like, well, if all fails, I could always teach tennis lessons to somebody. I wonder, what's that? What was that safety net for you? If things blew up.
don't even think about that, because there is no safety net. I'm somebody who doesn't have, until recently I had no family support. I was supposed to live no more than 20 years. I had a team of doctors at Bethesda enabled, so I have had all the surgeries. That's a whole other thing. I'm going to have health issues. I'm going to have expenses. I need to have a retirement plan for myself. And I'm an entrepreneur for most of my life. So of course I'm not, I saw this meme the other day that was like boomers celebrating selling their house for $2 million that they paid 6 raspberries for. And I'm like, that's so accurate. Like my parents paid like 40 grand for their house, sold it for like 800,000. Like that's not happening for us. And so for me, I've never taken my eyes off the prize. There is no plan B. I mean, stand-up comedy, people tell me I'm funny all the time. So I guess that could be, I don't think that makes a lot of money though, frankly. I'm not sure that's going to hold me down at 70. You know what I mean? That's not the life I envision for myself. So I don't really think about a plan B, because I know at the end of the day, I could do anything. You could put me in any room, in any situation, and I'm going to be okay. I will learn it. I will figure it out, and I will master it. But like, what do I want to do? Right? What does any of us want to do? And I'm doing it now. Right? And that's the key. What do you want to do?
It sounds like what you want to do is kind of the supporting artists. Like, what would you say is your, purpose or your mission here?
I try to figure that out, but I think I bring the best out of people. I'm good in situations. I was at this booth with these guys all week, and they told me, man, this was so much better. Normally we're kind of stressed out and waiting for people to show up. And I was talking with everybody. I'm a good connector. I'm a good vibe creator. I'm excellent at strategy and business development. So like, as much as I love artists and stuff, never want to work with them again. I'm far more interested in like, what's the deal? How much did you raise for your company? How many investors did you have? What's your revenue? Like that is way, way, way more exciting to me than like,
Well, doesn't Heartcast Media help podcasters, which I guess are artists? I don't know if I would call ourselves an artist here.
I don't think we're artists.
Creatives. Yeah.
Creatives. Yeah, maybe we're creators.
So I guess how do you reconcile those two? Or do you think of them like as entrepreneurs, each podcaster?
It's business development. It's 100%. Because again, we don't care about downloads. I don't care if your episode got heard by 10 people. What you wanted was the relationship with the person across the table. So it's a completely different method. And when I first started Heartcast Media, I wanted to be Lemonade and Pineapple Street or Cadence 13 or whatever those companies were. I wanted to get bought out by Spotify. I was like, buy me Spotify, I'm for sale. Guess who's bankrupt? Every single company I mentioned.
Yeah,
every single one of those companies.
Yeah, I've never heard of those companies, so exactly. I guess they're not doing too well.
But
yeah, well, you know how much Cadence 13 got bought out for like $50 million by Spotify. Like, bro, they hit the jackpot on those sales. Every single one of those companies that got by Spotify is out of business right now, because the model of have a piece of content, get a bunch of people to listen to it, sell advertising on it, scrub the data. That's all Anchor is a massive data scrub, right? Do it from your phone. Give up all your rights. Blah, 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 blah. They literally ran that company for 2 years, sold it for $50 billion, right? The whole thing it's a rub, man. It's Spotify for podcasts, Spotify for music. It's the same hustle, man. Nobody's making money except for Spotify. So I knew like very quickly that is not the game I want to be in. I don't want to work with I don't mind Joe Rogan. I think he's great, but I'm not interested in working with artists like that. I'm not interested in people whose ego I have to boost. I want to work with people who want to fill their pipeline and want to talk about business and ROI and do it efficiently and succinctly and don't have massive egos. You know what I mean? So it's a completely different shift, in why they're doing this podcast, and it has nothing to do with visibility,
And so just to be clear, you take podcasts, even small ones, and help them kind of create, brand, produce it, market it. Kind of, you're like that mother for the podcast, making sure it happens.
Pod mama.
Pod mama, I like it.
I do too. I'm like, it's got a ring. No, well, it's really not about the market. So I'll explain it to you the way I explain it to them. The podcast, it's 3 ways. It's like a dinner plate, right? The steak is always the steak, and that's the relationship. Who are you interviewing and why? Too many people say, oh, I have an insurance company and I do have a podcast about failure. Awesome. You're wasting your time. Stop it immediately. Like why are you, what? This is the message you want to get out. No. Who are you interviewing and why? Who do you want to do business with this year? For example, I do cold outreach on LinkedIn. It's snarky. It's funny. I only target CMOs who have actively posted on LinkedIn in the last 30 days. They open my thing. They connect with me. I send them another snarky message and invite them to be on my podcast. The open rate is like 80%. It's insane. It's insane. My close rate on that is over 50%, right? So same concept. It's like, let's get you in on the show. Let me identify who do I want to work with? CMOs. Then I get them onto my show. I show them how easy it is to work with us. There's a link they click to join our podcast. Just like you guys sent me the emails, like what to expect. Like no one does that stuff. You guys are literally like miles ahead of everybody just by setting expectations. Like it's wild, right? And then you do a great introduction, right? You don't just read their bio. You do like you get genuinely curious about your guest. Right. And you find out things about them that they didn't tell you. And you do a killer introduction. They're immediately like, wow, thank you. That's the best introduction I've ever got. The gift of reciprocity is real. They are open for that conversation. Then you got to know your stuff, right? You got to know your stuff or you're not going to have a good conversation. I'm talking to them about marketing, right? How are you using content marketing in 2024 to get new business? Because I think everybody's interested in it. When I hit stop, 80% of those people are saying, tell me more about Heartcast Media. What are your rates and services? I think I have clients for you. I'm not talking to them about my business. I'm not talking about them about my rates. I don't have a sales sheet. I don't have a sales pitch. There's no fee to come on the podcast. None of that. All I'm doing is establishing a relationship with CMOs who have lots of clients, fractional CMOs who have lots of clients, who understand that I understand marketing. I have a full service team behind us. We're super organized because I've already sent them an email 5 minutes after the recording saying, thanks for being on the show, right? Then they see the content and it's really good. Now, every time they think about somebody who needs a podcast, guess who they're calling? Me, right? 100% business development. How many downloads does my podcast have? Not going to say it. It's embarrassing. How many deals have I closed? That's a different story.
That's what matters. I have to ask, though, I can't get out of my head that, iHeart radio or media, it seems like the heart in Heartcast Media seems similar with the iHeart.
Listen, man, are you a trademark attorney? What's going on here? I'm
just saying, like,
cease and desist on this conversation.
Is that like is it? But it's different things, I guess. It's not. You're not in any way related to.
We're not them. We're not them. But it's okay if people think we are. But I didn't do it for that reason. My old company was called One Love Massive. I'm very like, our tagline is listening is the revolution. Like, even though I'm all about business development, I'm also like a decent person who cares about the planet. So it really was like well-intended branding to complement, the next V2 of the old company is really what the motivation. So back to the whole dinner plate. The steak is a relationship. That is the most valuable thing that comes out of that. Then the potatoes, because I'm Irish, they come second, and that's the SEO. You can take that transcription and turn that into LinkedIn newsletters, blog posts, regular email newsletter. I mean, if you don't know what to do with a transcription in AI, you got bigger problems than finding new clients, right? Your team can turn that into massive amounts of content for your website, blog posts, all that. And then the vegetables is the social media proof, the, quote graphics, the guest graphics, the short vertical clips. That's to let everybody know, hey, I sat with Molly on my podcast, and let everybody else know who you're hobnobbing with, if you will, right? And it just helps you it's another touch point for you to nurture that relationship. Hey, Tom, thanks for coming on my podcast. By the way, here's 10 vertical video clips and 3 clips for social media, and we'll tag you on this, but do whatever you want with it. And here's the transcription too. You're just nurturing that relationship, and you're letting other people know, by the way, I've been hanging out with Tom. Me and him are homies now. And now you've associated me with Tom, right? I'm in that world. And Tom has now associated me with podcasts, right? So, but everybody else is going to tell you, focus on the vegetables, focus on the social media, make audiograms, pump, do 56 episodes a year. That's not going to close you any deals, man. That's going to take you away from your business. It's going to lead you away from the focus of your business. And it's not going to make you any money. It's going to cost you money, cost you time. And if you don't do it right, it cheapens your business. I mean, we've all looked on LinkedIn and been like, ooh, scroll past that. Like, how am I supposed to believe you sell $10 million properties when you're recording a shitty video? Oh, sorry, a bad video from your phone and it sounds like trash, but you're closing $10 million properties? Come on, man. Come on, man. Nobody's believing that. So it's like, if you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all. So focus on the steak, focus on the relationships, do 15 episodes, Q1, fill your pipeline, see you again in Q4. Like, it's not about being popular on LinkedIn with podcast graphics. When was the last time you listened to a podcast that you saw on LinkedIn?
Today, our podcast. No, but
Exactly.
I think this is all really, really good stuff. How can someone, so let's say they run a business and they definitely want new customers, and they're in B2B, and so they're looking for new business customers. How would you recommend that someone gets started? Like what's kind of a tactical steps? It sounds like reach out to some prospects, good prospects on LinkedIn, nurture them a little bit, invite them on the pod, and then create a good experience for those people on the pod. Send them reminders, prepare them, do your research ahead of time. And it sounds like use good equipment. Are those kind of fair? Like what if someone was trying to do this themselves, how would you recommend they do that?
I would recommend that they don't do it themselves, that they hire a company that could be in their price point, because again, it's about the relationship, and you don't want to show that person that the work isn't good, or that it takes 6 weeks later the episode comes out. Man, it's like you go to a networking event, you meet some people, you exchange business cards, you wait 6 weeks to email them. Probably nothing's going to come of that. You know what I mean? So it's better to invest a little bit of money, but do 15. You're not looking at 56 episodes. You're looking at 15, produced really well. Like a company like mine, we'll create the outreach for you. We'll do the outreach for you. We'll have it going into your mailbox. We'll design all of your assets. We'll do this. We'll take care of all you got to do is show up and nail the interview. We'll take care of everything else, including a blog post. And it's really not that expensive in the grand scheme of things when you think about ROI. When you think about the cost of 15 episodes in the setup and you compare, okay, well, what's your average deal size? Is it 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand? Well, one deal can cover the cost of 15. And if you're decent, you should close more than one of 15. Yeah.
So without pitching yourself, what, if someone wants to do this on their own, like how would you recommend that they do it?
Well, using a platform like Riverside and not Zoom is a great place to start, so that you guys are doing, so that you're not, Zoom is just a telltale sign of bad audio and bad video. So that's a really great place to start. I really don't recommend people do it on their own. I just really don't, because I feel like, listen, it's an advertising marketing arm. Like, you're not necessarily going to go run Google ads by yourself. You're not necessarily going to start running Facebook ads by yourself. You're not going to try to do your own SEO, right? As an entrepreneur, there's a lot of those things that you have to do on your own in the beginning. But there's, you could build your own website, or you could just pay somebody to do it. You know what I mean? Like, you change your own oil, or you can pay somebody to do it. So, I would just really recommend at least start with a very clear strategy, even maybe paying a podcast coach to at least really get you straight on what is the goal, how do you get that done, what equipment to use, what mic to buy, have some guidance, because what happens is people try to do it on their own. They're looking for all the free software, the free this, the cheaper mic, and it just works. It works against them. Bad content works against your business. It's one thing if you're just on Facebook and TikTok and you're making crazy stuff, but if you're doing this for your business, it's a direct representation of your brand, So if you're interviewing people you want to do business with, especially, so to me, it's worth the investment. Or do 6 episodes and just really nurture those relationships. Close one of those deals and it'll fund the rest of the year.
How do you find guests to come on? How do you get them to come on?
Cold outreach on LinkedIn is really the best place as far as I'm concerned, because you can dial on the exact title of the person that you're trying, like CMOs of a certain size company or in certain locations, or COOs or CEOs or whoever it is. I always encourage people to think a little bit outside the box and the CEO is not going to make the decision anyway. So like, who's really making the decision? Like I talked with somebody yesterday. I'm like, who hires you? She's like, HR people. I'm like, then you should interview HR people who probably never get asked to be on the podcast. The C-suite's always on podcasts, but the HR is the one who's actually going to hire her. She's like, oh, you're right. Like it's not always the top guy that you need to go for. It's the decision maker. So kind of helping people think about that, or think about aggregators. Like if I want to work with startups, I actually pitch VC companies because they have multiple portfolio companies, which is easier to get one to many versus one to one. So just really having a strategy, and lean away from just inviting people that you know because you think it'll be a good interview. Like that's, if they're not going to hire you, I wouldn't recommend doing it.
And so if someone's reaching out to an HR person, that HR person may not even listen to interview or podcasts. What's the pitch? It's like, hey, come on and talk about what, in the HR example, come on, talk about HR. Is that the pitch to them?
More or less, it's like, okay, like this person does a bunch of training programs, right, for huge, $50 million plus companies. And so I'm like, well, what is the struggle that they're having? What are they? So interview them about that, talk about how AI is changing HR and what's happening. Like you're not even talking to them about your business. You're just talking about problems they're having and creating that relationship. So it's like, really going in for those specific job titles to find exactly who they want.
Nice. So one other thing is like, how can a business owner get booked on other podcasts? So we're talking about someone running their own pod, but if someone's interested in doing this for business development, maybe they want to get their message out to others. So how would you recommend somebody do that?
For sure. So I love the 1-2 punch of podcast production and booking. With a lot of my clients, once their podcast is ready to launch, I'll do 90 days of booking with them because it's just great. It's like your podcast is not going to necessarily get a ton of downloads, but it doesn't hurt to go on other people's podcasts that do have bigger followings. So other people are talking about you on LinkedIn, right? So that's a great way to, like, if you're launching a book or a new program, like do 90 days of booking. The best way to get approved is to make it really simple for people. Create like a media page on your website that's like, hi, I'm Molly. Here's my social media following. Here's some high-res pictures of me. Here's my bio. Here's questions I'm always ready to answer. Here's some keywords to focus on. Make it really easy for people. I would get a microphone. Absolutely have to have a microphone and headphones too. You can use the one from the airplane if you want. It doesn't matter. Just take the audio out of the room. But higher quality podcasts won't even consider you if you don't have a microphone, and rightfully so. If they're paying a company like mine a lot of money to produce a podcast, they don't want you coming on with your laptop microphone and bringing down the quality of it all. So the media kit, having good stuff. And then when you're reaching out to people, like, don't use AI because everybody's doing that, and you can just tell right away. And everything is pitched like my client, or I can bring tremendous value to your podcast. Like, avoid that sentence at all costs. What does that even mean? I get a lot of pitches that say, we'd love to collaborate on your podcast. I'm like, oh, does that mean you're paying for half of it? Like, that is not the word you're supposed to be using. We're not collaborating on anything. You're asking if your client can be a guest on my podcast. Just say that and then tell me why they would be a good fit. Hey, I'm tracking your show. I'm wondering if you're accepting guests. I would like to humbly suggest myself or X, and here's why. You haven't talked about these things in the last 10 episodes, so I thought this would be valuable. They can answer these questions, blah, 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 and here's everything you need. That goes a lot further than some gassed up, wordy, clearly written by AI message that was sent by an admin. It's never going to work.
Gassed up. I like it. Well, I don't like it. Bad gassed up things.
I mean, we've all seen it. You can tell, like, they make you sound like a wizard on ChatGPT. They're like marketing mavens. I'm like, Maven? Who uses the word Maven this much? Apparently ChatGPT. Like, come on.
I want to ask kind of what's one hack you've discovered recently that might help others. And I'll start. You guys know Canva? Which, by the way, speaking of regrets, or I'm really jealous. I know this guy who's an angel investor in Canva, and it's not like I had opportunity to invest in Canva, but I guess I'm just jealous that I didn't invest in Canva. But anyway, back to Canva, great product. And they just recently added the ability to print things. And so I used to like do business cards and various things, Photoshop, and then send it to Vistaprint or something, or Staples. And now Canva, you could just right from Canva, click a button and boom. It's also super cheap. It's like $20 for 200 business cards, something like that. That's going to come in a few days. And the design obviously is like much easier. And then just 2 clicks and boom, cards at the door. So, trying to help this guy.
Done.
And
Wait till you get them.
Yeah.
I ordered business cards on Canva too. And I got like the thick cards with like the velvet stock. And like they show up in this beautiful box. You open the lid. There's this. It's like the customer experience is top notch. I couldn't believe it too. And they're excellent cards, like super thick.
The absolute cheapest thing ever.
Yeah, it was like rivaling like Apple, like the whole like box and then there was even like a note or something in there that was like, you got this, go crush it or something, but it was like, go ahead, Canva, like stepping it up. So you'll see when you get your business cards. Yeah,
Everybody's
really
gonna love
impressive.
them.
Yeah.
All right, I have one. I have not yet tried it, though I'm getting ready to. It's called ballpoint marketing. Anyone heard of it? Okay. So they've trained robots how to handwrite cards. So, they're these like handwritten letters, and you can always tell that it's just like a font, and it was just printed, and it looks awful. So this ballpoint marketing is they use like it's a real hand that writes and using a real pen, a robot. Now, why do I care about this? So my mom runs this painting company, and she's found that this direct outreach, I think the home services business is so ripe for disruption. I think it's, and by the way, I don't mean like venture capital disruption. I mean that if you're listening to this show and you want to make $250,000 a year and you're like, oh, I'm not a coder, or I'm just a hustler. Like I'm willing to work hard, and I'll work 10, 12 hours a day, and I'll bust my ass to do it. Home services is where it's at. Like it's just the direct pathway to, I think, making serious money. And now you have to work a lot, and it's crappy hours, and it's all kinds of negative things. But especially if you're young, and you don't have to do the work, right? So you could be the salesperson. But anyway, back to it. So I've been helping my mom with this business, and what we found is that direct outreach works amazing. Like what works great is door hangers on doors. It's things like that. And this kind of personal touch where it's a handwritten card, I'm positive it's certainly going to work. It's just how well will it work? And what I also like about ballpoint marketing, especially compared to the others that I was looking at, is that they post the prices up front. So many of these services, they want to ring you in. It's all lead gen. They just want you to, give me your phone number, give me your email address. But here, it basically costs $1.50 per card, which is a lot, but also not a lot. So if you send 100 of them out, it costs you $150. And then it's all just a numbers game. It's like, who are you targeting? Who are you sending them to? What's the call to action? What's the conversion rate? Which is a lot of what I do in my business, not direct mail, but through other digital means. So just wanted to give that a shout out, and I'll report back in a few weeks on how it went. But I like this idea. I think there's something interesting about robots taking people's jobs and then selling that as a service. So no more people writing things by hand. Robots are doing it. But Molly,
people can still write? I didn't even know.
I could not write. Looking at this, it's like, it writes better than I do.
That's too funny. Well, this is right in line with this one. I interviewed somebody on my podcast a week or two ago and learned all about this, and would also like to try it. Haven't done it yet, but it's a company called The Modern Postcard, and they do direct mail. So I was like, direct mail? Like, who's doing direct mail? Well, apparently they can retarget people who have visited your website and send them a mailer. And when you think about competition in the analog space, nobody's saying, like when I was younger, you would have like a stack of junk mail every day that was like this thick. No one's doing mailers anymore. Everybody's digital, email, ad space, billboards, but in physical, there's a lot less competition in people's mailbox. And then it sits on the kitchen table. It goes on the refrigerator, But I was just blown away by that because I'm like, first of all, that feels slightly unethical. How do you figure that out? Like, but like, we have a lot of people come visit my website every month and stay for like 4 minutes, which is great. But I'm like, but where are they going? So like, I want to send them mailers because nobody else is doing that. But I thought that business was dead, but they're really embracing technology and data to like continue to service their clients. They're like a 40-year-old company, but I love the old school, new school aspect of it. And I think they're onto something with that. I mean, imagine getting a microphone shaped mailer, less than a week after coming and looking at my website, They
have a good website too, and a good brand. Modern Postcard. It's a good, yeah. For an old industry, it's a new.
Exactly.
Feel.
And there are people who have been there for like 20 years and, so I'm like, that's an indication of a good company when people stay that long,
Yeah. Wait, so Taylor, yours is a robot actually writing the thing or is it a human?
No, it's a robot. Well, it used to be human, and now that they've trained robots how to write it, and you like pick how sloppy it should be.
Oh, really? They can be sloppy.
Yeah.
It's
like yours.
It's like that Boston Dynamics robot. It's just kind of like a dog.
There are YouTube videos on people who made their own robots on how to do it. I'm not like buying and building my own robot interested in this, but I am like $1.50 per postcard, interested in it. But yeah, it's a robot writing it, and I guess mailing it too. I guess a human probably mails it, but yeah, all right.
The carpal tunnel specialists are like, damn it, we're going to go out of business now. There's no humans writing endless greeting cards anymore.
I don't know what happened to the carpal tunnel people. I haven't heard from them in a while. All right. Well, look, guys, it's Molly's really been a pleasure having you on. Hope you had fun. Thanks for joining us today.
Where can people find you, Molly?
Heartcastmedia.com or hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm there making fun of people. So can't make
fun of people. I like it. No. All right. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for rocking with the homies. Taylor, Trusty, and Flavio. Seize the day, own it. Until next time. Hold it down. Hold it down. Hey.